Hi, I'm Shruti.
I'm Shukti.
I'm Shreeya. Welcome to Need A Natter. We're back for episode
Yay!
Episode 2. How are we all today?
Doing?
Well, I'll go first. I had a job interview, which I told Did all about, and it was just, it was annoying. I didn't tell Shreeya about it. I'm not going to go into it, but it was bad. It was not because I was bad, but because the people interviewing me were bad. And so it was for a movie, apparently, and they just, honestly, were just talking out their ass, which a lot of people do over here when they're not legitimate production houses. And honestly, I didn't even know that it wasn't a legitimate production house, because more often than not, you just get told that there's a job, right? And they're looking for somebody for a movie, and then you go and you meet them. And then when I got there, it was a dance studio with a cafe on top of it, and they took the interview in a cafe on top of a gym. Anyway, so yeah, my day went pretty bad, so I had to calm myself with like a session of yoga. And now I have my peach tea, and I'm ready for a natter with my sisters. You guys go.
I took a day off work and I spent the whole day just putting things online to sell. So
Yay.
That was pretty much it. I'm just trying to clear the house out at the moment for the wedding specifically.
Yay!
If you didn't hear it, if you didn't hear episode 1, go and listen to it. But I talk about it a little bit there. But yeah, I'm just trying to clear the house out. It's being redecorated anyway. So now it's just getting the junk out.
Yeah. So go on then,
That's
Did.
what
How
I've
was
been
your
doing.
day?
And my day was just boring, as it pretty much always is when it's a work day. Boring but rushed. So it's like always running around. So it's dropping off the kids in the morning, working a full day, then going to pick them up and getting them to bed in time to record the podcast. But today I'm really suffering with hay fever, which I never had earlier on. My adult life, hay fever has hit me hard and my eyes are streaming. I'm so glad you can't see me right now, but my eyes are absolutely streaming. But yeah, through my tears, I will persevere.
I've kind of lost track of the Diddy case as well. Like,
oh, the Diddy case is very interesting. So I am quite up to date with it. I have an inkling that because his lawyers are so good and intimidating, that he might just get away with DV.
but he's not been charged. I mean, this case is not about DV.
It might be a mistrial. It might end up being a mistrial.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm a bit, I don't think they've got a watertight case. And there's a lot of debate as to whether or not, whether all the parties are accusing him, especially like Cassie, whether or not they are guilt-free. So because a lot of people are seeing them as accomplices, and obviously don't want to incriminate myself by saying anything. Oh, this is all alleged, obviously. But yeah, it's all over the shop at the moment, but it isn't going in the direction I thought it was going to. And I thought it was going to be very clear cut, and it was going to be very one-sided. But he's paid for good lawyers. Obviously, he can pay for good lawyers.
But I mean, I do think that. Anyway, we're going a bit on. Should we rein ourselves in? I think we're going off on a completely unplanned thing. Not that the podcast is really planned, but we're going off in it. We already had a topic picked, and now we're like Diddy case. Anyway, so let's rein ourselves in. So yeah,
You guys definitely seem to know more about it than I do. Jeez.
Oh yeah. I'm a couple. I need to listen to a bit more about it. I went off track because for a couple of days I've been a little preoccupied. But anyway, so our topic for today is weddings.
Woohoo! And specifically weddings, not marriage. That's a whole different topic. That's a whole different podcast.
Yes.
But weddings, because obviously we've got weddings on our mind. We've got a pending wedding. So we've got wedding, like we said in the last episode, the wedding in 9 months. And we're all very excited about it, but we thought we'd probably share our opinions and experiences with finding the one, and obviously going into the wedding side a little later on. So to give you a bit of context, we're all of South Asian, specifically Indian ancestry, if you like, and Shukti is obviously based in India. So we've got slightly a different take on it, in the sense that they are two avenues typically that you take down. You either go down what is known as an arranged marriage. We won't go into forced marriage, that's a whole different topic. But arranged marriage, where your parents introduce you or friends introduce you, friends of the family introduce you and your prospective partner, and maybe you'll go on a couple of dates and then decide whether or not you want to get married to them. Or you have cringe love marriage, which I just hate the term love marriage, but because I believe all marriage should be based on love, but that's what we term it when you choose your own partner. So I know that we grew up having very different opinions of, what we thought for ourselves, and our opinions of love marriage versus arranged marriage. And I know my opinions have changed, but what about you two? Well, let's start with you, Shukti. What do you think? What was your opinion?
I didn't really have an opinion on arranged marriage, to be honest, because I didn't think it was applicable or I didn't think it'd be relevant in my life, to be honest. I knew for sure that's not what I want to do. I'd rather not get married than go down that route, because there's a lot of performance that is not just okay, there's multiple reasons. One of the reasons is the performance that you have to put on, right? A bit like a blind date, but a more formal version. And you guys know how awkward I get when all eyes are on me, unless I'm dancing on a stage. Apart from that, like, even if it's my birthday and people are singing happy birthday to me, I get like really, a bit like I don't like it very much. So the whole performance element was something I knew I can't do. So I better just find someone for myself. So the arranged marriage thing was never a thing in my mind, to be honest. The only time it was relevant, we tried it out for you a little bit. What about you, Shrees? How do you feel about it?
This is quite interesting listening to you both, because I feel like somehow we've all been raised together by the same parents and everyone's opinions are very different. Because I always thought, and I think probably up until my late teens, that arranged marriage was just what was going to happen to all of us. And I don't know why.
Till your late teens?
Yeah, honestly, and I don't know why that was. I don't know if it's because, one, I think in movies it was always shown that way, or if it wasn't shown that way, then it ended up being that way, like going through the parents some way. So maybe movies had a bit of a thing to it. And then maybe it was just watching Shruti Didi go through that process a little bit. And so I thought that was just what we were going to do. I thought that was just the way that we did things.
And that was precisely my default setting.
And I don't know, I think that probably changed then when you got married, because you obviously chose your husband then. Yeah. So I think maybe that was when it changed. But like I'm saying, that was like when I was 18.
Yeah.
So it was my late teens.
So was I the only hopeless romantic out of the three of us?
You guys know I'm not a romantic. I'm not a romantic at all. Like my idea of marriage and weddings entirely is very different to both of you. Like I never saw that happening for me. I'm quite happy in my own space and all that kind of stuff. So I'm definitely not the romantic person. I think maybe you guys are.
No, I'm the same. I always had quite a low self-esteem growing up. I want We're recording.
Well, someone's out of bed.
But good night, sweetheart. Can I have a cuddle? Good night. I'm so glad you wanted a good game of Ludo.
I'm going to keep this in.
Good night. You say good night. Okay. Well, I always had quite a low self-esteem. So for me, it was I never thought that anybody would fall in love with me. I did think it would be a possibility that I would fall in love with someone, but I didn't quite have an idea in my head what that person would be like. I didn't have any strong criteria. My criteria was kind of led by what our parents said was their criteria. So I always envisaged that I would get married to somebody who was from a very similar background to us and was educated. That was really big on the agenda, that the person had to be educated. Money was never a thing. It was never even figured, because I think it was just a given that if somebody is educated, they'd have the ability to earn. But it was not on our mind at all. So I always thought that was my default setting, that I was going to have an arranged marriage, and for a very long time that's what it was, because and I was introduced to a lot of people, and it was very unsuccessful. I can't, how else can I term it? Probably, yeah, just unsuccessful, in the sense that there was a lot of criteria. And I think, Shukti, you hinted at it, that it's kind of a forced situation. So everyone's putting their best kind of face forwards, and they're showing you their best side. But even in doing that, the amount of judgment and critique you get, you have to be a very thick person to go through the arranged route. So I had comments on my height, which I wasn't too bothered about, but things that I can't control, obviously height, skin tone, when I was born, because horoscope matters a lot in specifically Hindu customs. And then there was the entire consideration around things like caste, which I did not even know about. I did not know what caste we belonged to up until somebody relatively close to us who was getting married, and that became a topic of conversation. And all of a sudden we were made aware of the fact that, yes, we are a caste, and this is what the caste is, and you'd want to get married into that same caste. These men were cherry-picked for me, but the compatibility wasn't there. I got rejected way more than the boys that I rejected. I think I rejected probably 2, and all the others rejected me for things quite outside my control. So it was a very it was a terrible experience, and I would never want to go through it again. But my idea of love versus arranged marriage has completely changed, to the extent that I don't believe that arranged marriages should continue to happen. I would never wish them for my children. I know that they're very successful, but I've got my own theory as to why that is. Also, I don't like the transactional element that often comes with arranged marriages, like the concept of dowry, the concept of, creating wealth in that way. And it's not based upon love, and sometimes not even based on respect.
But just to cut you off there, but dowry and arranged marriage doesn't necessarily go hand in hand. You can be dating someone for the longest time, and then you realise after a point that if you want to marry this person, they will want dowry. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you meet them, you know.
Oh no, that definitely doesn't factor into it. But I would like to think that if somebody likes you for you, if it's genuine, if it's a genuine love, then dowry should not even be a matter of conversation.
Do you want to explain dowry for anyone who might not know what it is?
Yeah, so dowry is basically a price that the bride's family pay for marrying a suitor. And it sounds very Victorian, because it essentially is, because dowry existed in Victorian times as well in the UK and other parts of the world, I believe. It's still very prevalent in South Asian cultures. So essentially, a groom would fetch a price, and that would be based upon his attributes, sometimes, position in society, how much money he's prospectively going to make through his job. And you would pay that to the boy's family in the form of jewellery, gifts, sometimes hard cash. It's completely illegal, but very prevalent. In fact, I think the latest statistic was in 93% of marriages in India, dowry is exchanged, which is shocking.
But it's illegal in India. I don't know about the other regions of the world, if they are. And also, I think in some countries it's the other way around. It's the boy's family that pays the girls.
You have a bride price.
Yeah, but we don't know that very well. But I think the history of it is that they pay the amount to the boy's side, because the boy's family essentially would typically then look after the woman who's getting married, because she's not going to be earning. So now it's like an ancient tradition that is completely obsolete, right? I mean, it should be obsolete. It serves no purpose anymore, right?
It's continued on. It was supposed to be like the girl's inheritance, essentially, from her parents, that she takes with her. And it's not that anymore. In fact, dowry is the reason why you do find a massive skew in the sex ratio in India, especially. There's it's very state-centric, I find, that, like specific northern states, there is a massive, there's gender bias anyway, but the sex ratio is shocking in some parts, because they abort the female fetus on the basis that they don't want to pay the dowry. So women are seen as a burden, which is really sad, and it's sad that it's prevalent still.
Yeah. But I mean, just to keep this light, because we've gone a bit heavy, so this is not
Sorry.
a regular natter. Let's keep it a bit light. I want to hear you talk about some of the funny episodes that have happened with you when you've met people through the arranged marriage route. Because some of them have been funny. At least in hindsight, now they're funny. At the time, they might have just been
some
like,
were funny at the time, if I'm perfectly honest, all very surreal. The first person who I was introduced to was through such a convoluted, hidden way. I was almost ambushed because I didn't know it was coming. I didn't know anything about this. I was very, very young, and a lady that I knew through a training course asked me my address really randomly. I think it was part of this thing that we were doing. And she turned up at our house and she spoke to my parents, and I didn't know what this conversation was about, but a couple of weeks later we were at the Mandir, the Hindu temple, and I had this conversation with this boy who sat next to me, and we're chatting away. And then he stands up, I stand up, and my 5'2" frame was bigger than his.
Aww.
So I know, poor lad. I didn't say no because I didn't know what this was about, but apparently they turned me down on the basis that, oh, the girl's a bit taller. I've never in my life been called tall at 5'2".
When did you turn to 5'2"? You were 5'3".
I think some people round up their height. I round down my height. I don't know why.
Well, don't do that because I'm 5'2.5" last time I got measured. So if you're telling me you're 5'2", that means I'm like shorter than that.
And then that means I was like shorter. I don't want to even say how short that would then make me.
Okay. I am 5'3". I believe it. I believe it in my heart now. But I think recently I've started calling myself 5'2". I don't know why. Maybe it rolls off the tongue better.
But you're 5'3".
But I'm 5'3". In reality, I'm 5'3". I think height never figured in my life. It was never a problem because I was always the tallest in our family.
Yeah.
So in this context, you were rejected because you were.
I was rejected
too tall
for being
at 5'3".
You're too tall.
Too tall.
Wow. That's never been a problem for our family.
The next few are not going to be in chronological order, but I'm going to keep this as vague as possible because I don't want to. I don't want to make it specific to any person. But there was another family that came over. This time, I knew that someone was coming, like a family were coming to, inverted commas, see me. So I had to wear nice clothes, which was really weird. And I had to bring in a tray, which is a tray of drinks for our guests, which was awkward.
I was saying this was the performance part that I was
This is the performance part. So obviously I was on my best behaviour, and I know that I'm not that person. I'm not a person to serve drinks. I'll just say, there's a tap, go get yourself some water.
She's never used a tray at any other point.
I have never used. I use a tray for the gardener now. When the gardener comes, he gets his cup of tea on a tray, and that's about the only time the tray ever gets.
This is the same woman who's literally thrown snacks at me. If I've ever been like, oh, can you pass me that? She'll just throw the crisps at my head.
So performative. so very, very performative. And then we got left in a room to, inverted commas, talk. And this guy had the conversational skills of, I don't even know, a doormat. I'm a bit of a talker, but I thought, let's give this guy a chance. And he said, so do you like food? And I said, yes, I love food. And he said, what kind? And I said, I really like Chinese food. And he said, I don't like Chinese food because they eat funny animals. And I said, I'm vegetarian, so I don't eat funny animals. And then he said, so do you like water? And because that's my favourite drink. And then I said, yes. And he said, still or sparkling? And I said, still. And he said, bottle or tap? And I said, I don't care. I'll drink either. And then he said, so what do you think we should say? And I said, about what?
We should say? About water?
No, so what do you think we should say? Parents. And then I said, about what?
That's soon, man. Oh my gosh.
So I said, about what? And he said, about us.
Wow.
And I was like, to who? And he goes, to the parents. And then the next minute, his parents enter the door and they say, so what have you decided? And I said, I'll need to talk to my parents. And the boy and his family left. And I turned to our parents and I said, no. And apparently they kept calling for
they did.
months.
They called as soon as they got home, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Do you know, there was one family that I remember who infuriated me. I don't know if this is the same guy's family who, when you went to the park, you were sent to, like, go have a
This
stroll
would be
in
the park one.
But I'll tell you about the family. You know what, right? When you go to someone's house and they've made food for you, whether you're hungry or not, eat it, because effort went into making that meal, you know? And like mum, okay, to be fair, we ordered the food because that kind of effort for people you don't know is a little extra, innit? Bit excessive.
Not worth
So
it.
there must have been, how many? There was 5 of us and 3 of them. So for 8 people, to make food for 8 people is a little excessive. So we ordered food from Mullick's. Do you remember Mullick's?
Yeah.
Oh,
Back in the day. And we ordered like really nice food for everyone. They didn't know that it was ordered. Like it looked, it's not like we would have hidden it. If they would have eaten it, it would have been like, yeah, it's our local takeaway or whatever. But it was really nice food. And they're like, no, we have to go now. And it did my head in, because then we had to eat Mullick's for the next like 3 days.
Yeah, it was that family. And they went away from that meeting saying, yes, it's a done deal. And that guy called me for about 3 months after, constantly. And then he called me one day and he said, I don't think we're clicking. And I remember exactly where I was. I was in Scarborough. I was on a beach eating chips. And this guy said, I don't think we click. I was with my best mate, just walking along the pier. And I was like, okay. So she said, oh, so you're not getting married now? And I said, I don't think I was getting married ever, because we've not, he was right. We hadn't clicked in the sense that, it was very formal still. And then I said, okay, fine, that's over. And then his parents called and said, we're so sorry, but we had no idea our son had a girlfriend. And he just
Are we
never.
talking about the water guy?
This wasn't the water guy.
This wasn't the water guy.
This is a different family. Okay. I thought he told you at the park.
He never told me in the park.
Oh
wow.
At the park, he was actually very complimentary and kind.
Oh.
And saying things like, your family seem really nice, you have a very nice house, and all this kind of stuff. Not complimentary about me, sorry, complimentary about the surroundings, our parents, and all of that kind of stuff.
Well, we do put on a good front.
We do. I think we're very presentable.
It takes a minute to find out that we're all absolutely off our rocker.
Completely bonkers.
It takes a minute.
So it was, but his parents were very nice about it. They were very apologetic, but I wish he had the guts to say it himself, but he didn't. But I think the funniest one, and this is one that you two will remember, was we were going to a wedding and we were dressed in our finery, like absolutely dolled up on the motorway. And we were going to meet this family at a service station. So for anyone who's listening outside the UK, the service station is basically a rest stop on one of the main roads in the UK that you have, where you can stop for
on the motorway.
On the motorway, on the highway, or whatever you call it. Yeah,
so you can go there you can get some food, you can have a wee, all of that kind of stuff. And we were supposed to be getting off at a specific junction, and our dad kept missing it. He kept going round in circles, because I think we were trying to avoid a toll road, which is so typical of us.
No, we paid that toll about 5 times.
Oh, we did. He just kept taking the wrong turn in.
5 times.
But that's the thing. Our intention was to avoid the toll road, and we kept going on the back of the toll road.
It wasn't. You're remembering it wrong. Our intention was to get there as soon as possible, because we were getting dressed up.
Yeah.
We were all running late. So Bar was like, no, let's just pay the toll and get there as soon as possible. But then this predates like Google Maps, right?
Yeah.
And
so we kept going round in circles.
I think we had a TomTom at the time. Maybe we had a TomTom. I don't remember. Did we?
No, we didn't. We didn't at all.
He was using a regular
because
map.
He was saying, "Can someone keep an eye out for the junction?" Because I remember all of us were like peering out.
So we're using it A to Z, essentially.
No, we were using our eyes. We were peering out of the window, going, "Where's this junction? Where's this junction?" So he'd memorised it, because that's how we used to do it back in the day. We used to memorise the route.
Oh my god!
And we kept missing the junction. Finally, we get there, and it was a Burger King. Of all joints that we could have gone to, it was a Burger King that we'd.
But you gotta love a Burger King.
I gotta love a Burger King. It was fantastic. And we walk in, and we see this Indian family just glaring at us, literally glaring. And we're like, sorry, we're late. And one of the people in the family, one of the girls, remember, she was like, oh, well, I've got to start my shift at my Saturday shift at the shop, so I'll be off. And she just literally left. And I got sat on a table with this guy. Everybody else was mingling in, sat kind of away from us. And this lad, I kid you not, did not even look up at me. He was on his phone constantly texting somebody and just like huffing and puffing and rolling his eyes at me. So he had a very short name. It was a 3-letter name, which I'm not going to say what it was. He had a 3-letter name. I said, oh, is that short for something? And he was like, no. I was like, okay.
Wow.
I don't want to be here as much as you don't want to be here. This is the most awkward thing. And I'm literally sat in a fast food establishment wearing my most elaborate outfit. Like, how ridiculous do I look and feel right now? And you're doing a great job making me feel very comfortable. So needless to say, that was an automatic rejection. But aside from that,
But wait. Just to add to this, Shreeya and I were put on the table with the sister.
With the sisters, yeah.
Or with the other sister.
And it was so ridiculous because we were wearing our flashy Indian clothes, right? And the jewellery and everything and whatever. And that girl, bless her, I think she had like joggers on. And her hair was like, it not been washed in about a week. Right. And I just thought, oh my God, if I knew we could come like that, then I would have. But
I think we would have all chosen to go in our casual gear, but it was just the fact that we decided to meet this family on the way to a wedding.
It was quite far out, innit? That's why.
It was out of the way.
But then, you know what? I bet you guys don't even know the next story. It didn't stop there. When we got to the wedding, I was really struggling with my left contact lens because I was just getting used to wearing lenses. I hadn't worn them very long and it was really irritating me. And I was like, oh gosh, I was really uncomfortable. We didn't know the family very well. It was, the people who were getting married very well. And Auntie comes up to me and she says, here, this girl used to take part in this cultural thing that you used to take part in, and shoved her towards me. This girl constantly kept saying to me, kept asking me lots and lots of questions. And I'm like, what? Who is this? Who is this irritant? Why does she keep asking me these questions? I'm feeling really uncomfortable. My contact lens has fallen out. I can barely see out of my eye. And then she's like, oh, do you want to go get up and dance? And I said, oh, no, I can't dance in these heels. And then that woman went away. And then the auntie comes to me. She comes running up to me. She said, what did you say to her? And I was like, what do you mean? She said, oh, we were trying to match you up to her brother. And I was like, okay, thanks for the heads up. Because I'm just like, why is this woman so intrusive? Why is she asking me weird questions about my life? And when all I'm trying to do is trying to find my contact lens to pop back in my eye, which I'd lost by then.
Awkward.
Hell yeah.
I think the only thing that I wish that I did before the whole wedding getting confirmed is speed dating. I'm so upset that I never got to go speed dating, and because I remember going with you and just sitting on the side and watching you speed date, and at the very least you have a laugh in it. Like I saw you.
I had a laugh, and I made so many friends, all female, from that experience because we were all in a bit of a shared experience. The first speed dating event I went to was a very cultural one. So it was everybody of the same kind of religious denomination that we're part of. And it was organised at a temple. I knew that I was going to have no luck whatsoever because they sat me next to the prettiest dentist I had ever seen in my life. So there were 2 girls per table and the boys were rotating. So I was like, oh my God, people are going to look at me and then they're going to look at this pretty dentist and just take her instead of me. But the funniest thing about it was that they wrote everyone's descriptions. They gave the name, they gave an age, and then they said girl or boy. And one of them was legitimately 56 years old. It was a 56 boy.
Oh, yeah.
And we were all really young. We were all like in our early 20s because for some reason, I think in those days, and this sounds like I'm very, very old, I am not, but things have shifted since then. But I think that when I was looking when we were looking for a match for me, I think people started very, very early, like in the early 20s. So I was probably maybe 22, 23 at the time, very young. It was really awkward when who I thought at the time was elderly gentleman sat down in front of me, and I was like, oh, hell no. But I didn't get many matches on that one, but the matches that we did get, the person I was matched with, we just exchanged details like, was that awkward for you? Because it was awkward for me. And I was like, yes, it was awkward. So that first one was quite awkward. The second one, our parents took me to in Manchester.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
So again, we're talking about very kind of arranged and still having that small pool of people to interact with. It's not like the world is your oyster and you can choose anybody in the entire world. It was literally like pre-selected pool of people. And then after that, I went to several Indian specific speed dating events alongside family member who was looking to get married as well. So it was a lot of fun. Absolutely unsuccessful again. But like I said, made lots of female friends. I think a lot of them are married now. A lot of the guys are married now as well. So, but not through the speed dating route. I think it was just a bit of fun.
Why don't you tell everybody how you actually met your husband?
Oh, I meant to. Really? Do I have to? Okay, fine, I will. Oh, you twisted my arm. So we knew each other for we knew each other for quite a while anyway. We knew each other from the same university. We went to the same uni, and we were just part of the same crowd. And ironically, we're not in that crowd anymore at all. And I think it was, for me, it was a very weird situation because I think I mentioned in the last episode that we didn't grow up around any Asian people. So going to university was a whole different thing. And for some reason, Asian people were attracted to me. So all my friends at university were South Asian mostly. And so it was just knew him for a very long time. And then we both exhausted all our options. So he went through the arranged route as well. I went through the arranged route. Nothing really worked for us. And then we just got in touch and just exchanged details and then realised that was not going to work for us. And it really developed very slowly and organically. It was not like, oh, then you're my backup or anything like that. It was more like, oh, okay, I've enjoyed speaking to this person and getting to know his journey, him getting to know my journey. So maybe this could work. So
basically, what you're saying is you could have just cut the crap and married the guy.
Oh, yeah.
10 years earlier.
Yeah, but you know what? I think it was important for me to get my head around the fact that arranged marriage is definitely not for me. And it was because of the weird and wonderful other encounters we had as well. So sometimes people would just call to inquire about me because my name was on a list. So without getting into too many details, our parents had given my name to a list and we used to get phone calls. I remember once our parents had gone to drop you off at uni. And I got a phone, and there was a phone call, and they said, "Can we speak to the mother or father of Shruti, please?" I said, "Well, they're not here, but I'm here." And they were like, "Oh, lovely to talk to you. Can we just ask you a question, please? What is your figure like?" This is an old man speaking to me. "What is your figure like?" And I was like, "Sorry." And he was like, "Yes, because our son prefers slim ladies."
Oh my gosh.
I was like, "Okay, can you please just wait for my parents to come home, they'll call you back." And they never called him back because I was like, no, I don't like the way this man spoke to me. And then there was other people who called up and they would start inquiring immediately about, what is the skin tone of your daughter? Is she fair skinned? Our parents always said, no, she isn't. She isn't fair. She isn't light skinned. She's medium tone. She is, the way that our dad would say is that she is what a middle, what the average Indian skin tone would be. And it was like, oh, that's not good enough for us. Or it was to do with my profession, or they would ask about our parents' profession to try and gauge how much dowry they could potentially get. Now, I was hoping that this would have subsided by now, but it hasn't, because there's a recent wedding that I was made aware of where dowry was exchanged, and it was shocking to me, and that was in the United Kingdom. When I asked about it, the groom basically justified it by saying, oh, we didn't ask for anything. The bride's family wanted to give us these gifts. And I was like, but you could have said no. You didn't have to take that. And so it kind of, it's continuing, and that's really upsetting, I think, in a lot of ways. And that's, it was something that wasn't even a topic of conversation with with my husband and me. So it's
and even with me, luckily the in-laws again really nicely have said we don't want anything. So I mean, I say really nicely because it is really nice to say that, but that should just be how it is, isn't it now?
But it isn't. And like I mentioned, the statistics as well, they are the official Indian statistics for the dowry, the percentage of weddings where dowry is exchanged. It's quite sad, but that's another reason why I don't think arranged marriages are something that I endorse.
No, but then again, I'm going to have to disagree. Arranged marriages and dowry is not a...
No, not because of the dowry.
Interchangeable. No, and also for someone who's struggling to find someone, I think an arranged marriage route, and I've not gone down the arranged marriage route. That was something I was petrified of. So the reason why I'm not saying that I'm against it. So my outlook on it is different to yours. Mine is that if someone is genuinely struggling to find someone, it's like any other dating app. Where I have a problem is when it becomes forced, right? But if you remember, every time you had a choice, you know what I mean?
No, I had a choice.
Forcing you.
I think the problem I have is more along the lines of you never get to know that person.
That's what dating is. Even when you're on a dating app, that person's going to put their best picture with the filter on. Right?
Oh, yeah,
and that's
definitely.
What you either swipe left or right, and then it's up to you to get to know that person. So when you're providing you are mate, and these days the arranged marriage route, at least in the more modernized places, it's not like, oh, you get a picture and oh, do you like him or not? It's not really like that. You do get to say, no, I need to know him a bit more, or I need to know her a bit more, and whatever.
But I don't know.
If you don't get that option, that's where the problem is.
I don't think the time you get to make that decision is adequate. And it's because you'll always have that pressure. Now, it's always been, I think the way that I've always viewed it is that we were not allowed to have, or it was very heavily implied that you do, we don't want you seeing anyone. So immediately, whenever through the arranged route, immediately when I met somebody, I'd have that, oh, what did you think of him? Let's move it to the next meeting. And all of those meetings at that time, and I'm talking about my specific experience, were accompanied. So you're under the gaze of parents, or even if we were allowed to go into a park and chat amongst ourselves, it was not adequate time to make a decision, but you'd always have that parental viewpoint, like, okay, can you hurry up now and tell us, whether we're moving forwards or not? Because the parents want to also develop that relationship amongst each other. So they're like, is it worth us investing in this other family or not?
So what would you suggest to someone who's not found the one, and girls do have a biological clock?
Yeah.
And we even if you're not going down the arranged marriage route, you have that pressure to find someone. So what would you advise that person?
I would say just take it all away. Take the parental responsibility away and just leave it up to people to date and find who they want.
But you do also get arranged marriage where the parents talk and then the kids who are the suitors or whatever, the couple that's supposed to be hooking up, they go elsewhere and meet independently of the families. That's also something that happens in the more modern side of things, I guess. So it is evolving. That's why I don't like to say, oh no, I don't agree with this, because I think it works for some people.
I just think it brings a lot of conditions. It brings with it a lot of conditions. So like you'd always expect, and the conditions typically are, you'd expect the girl to be beautiful and you'd expect the guy to have a good job or a decent income. And that's usually the criteria of the parents.
No, but even that is changing for girls who have, for example, I remember once someone saying, I'm not agreeing that someone said, like, I don't think it's the right thing to say, but I think I have heard that someone had said, we want the daughter-in-law to be either really, really beautiful or a doctor.
Oh, I've had that as well.
Do you remember that? So,
yeah.
Or do you know what? That actually doesn't even matter, because if the boy and the girl like each other, the parents, it doesn't matter.
I was going to say, I feel like that's changing. I agree with both of you in some respect, but I think more towards Shukti. Because with people my age, the way that I've seen it change is that they have been free to date from like a young age or whatever. And this is talking like our similar background, right? South Asian and everything. They've been free to date and everything. They've gone through all the social dating apps. They've equally, by their parents, been put on these same lists and things like that. And ultimately, more and more of them, I think, are going towards the arranged marriage route, because they've gone through that process and they're like, I'm still not finding someone that I can spend the rest of my life with. And then they're looking towards their parents again. You know what I mean? And sometimes I feel like the parents category has not remained as the girl needs to be beautiful or a doctor. It's more like what's similar to our community, our background. It has become more of it instead.
That makes me kind of uncomfortable as well, because I think it's always a limited pool that you're choosing from. When you start putting conditions on it, because I mean, like, spoiler alert, I didn't marry somebody from within our community in the end.
But if you're doing an arrangement, like an arranged marriage, for example, if you go blind dating, okay, and your friends are setting you up with someone, the conditions might not be the same, but they will be conditions. Like, oh, he likes working out, she likes working out. Oh, I bet they'll get along. Or
Yeah.
she's vegan, he's vegan. Oh, I bet let's hook them up. So it's the same thing, but it just means that it's more likely for them to, for example, in our community, what is it that it was like they should be so and so caste, so and so region of India, like Punjabi, whatever. And actually, I think the reason for that is so that when you're more likely to get along as well. You know?
I mean, to be fair, my criteria has completely changed from when I was looking, as in like from when I initially started looking towards the end. It completely changed. So initially it was like, oh, you know, it has to hit all the criteria, and towards the end I was like, you know what, I need someone with likable qualities, and you know, it just and even now, like I think at the time I turned somebody down because of them not being educated to you know, degree level, and I think I was wrong to do that. I think I should have given, you know, I think that was a very I think everyone's worth, you know, that's not somebody's worth, basically.
But again, this comes down to the biological clock, right? Girls want to get settled down to have a kid. I mean, ideally people get married because they want to have kids, right? I mean, that's a big factor in it. If kids are taken out of the equation, I bet people wouldn't get married till they're in their 50s because they just want to have a good time before that. Or at least a lot of people wouldn't. But so when you have to start dating, or when you have to start looking for that person, you're in your early 20s, where frankly, you don't know your head from your ass.
No.
You don't, okay? You don't. And no matter how mature people are, at 22, 23, you don't know what you're doing till you're at least 28. If not later, honest to God, if not later. So your criteria would change, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, of course.
Your criteria might be different in 10 years' time from now. If you were to go revisit what you want. So all I'm saying is that I think whatever works for an individual might be different to what we think. I've never met anyone through third party, ever. However, if I was single today, and I had not found anyone by my age, I'd definitely be open to either blind dating or a dating app or arranged marriage route or whatever worked for me. So, I mean, I don't want to
I think
discourage anyone from...
I think blind dating is very different. I think that the one big issue that I encountered with arranged marriage, and I think the only reason why that did not work out for me, is my horoscope, incompatible. I'm what is known as Manglik, which is born under an inauspicious star, which essentially implies that you would be bad luck upon your spouse, which is why a lot of guys from our community turned me down. And I think that it would have never worked for me, for example. And that's one of the limitations of the arranged route, which is why I have my problems with it. Again, I don't judge people for going down that route. I just think it needs to perhaps be, the onus needs to be more on the couple. And I also think that, like you mentioned about age, biology doesn't quite match up to maturity, unfortunately.
Not
and I think that a lot of the push for getting married younger, I just find it very sinister, because it's almost like the younger the bride is, the more she can be controlled and the more you can mold her to your way of living. I'm talking from the groom's family's perspective. And that just makes me really uncomfortable, because I dread to think what would have happened if I hadn't been born under an inauspicious star, and if I had got married at 22 or 23.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, when people start looking.
But even with the Manglik thing or whatever, I mean, this is a topic for a different episode, I think, to get into this whole thing. But there are solutions to all of that, from what I know. Like, you have to do some ritual or whatever. So if the couple like each other, there's always a solution to it. You know what I mean?
A lot of the parents wouldn't even allow that meeting to happen, because their first question was, what's your daughter's place, time, and
so
whatever
that's
it is.
fine though. That's fine though, isn't it? Because you won't want to be married to a person like that.
No, exactly. But that's what I'm,
yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So it's not like, so long as there's a choice, right? You have the choice that up to there, I'm all right. As soon as it gets forceful, that's where the problem is. But if people have the choice that this is what we want, are you okay with that? No, we're not. Okay, nice to meet you, off you go.
Forced or coercive, I would say, because I think in South Asian cultures there's a lot of coercion as well. Like there's kind of like, you better do this, or I will not talk to you ever again.
Yeah,
There'll be some kind of like condition like that imposed, and you kind of feel like you're obliged to get married to someone and make out like it's your.
Should we just go off on a different thing, because I think we've again gone a little heavy. I don't know why this topic is such a trigger point for us.
It's supposed to be such a light-hearted wedding, and it's like
it was supposed to be a light-hearted one. Oh my gosh, it was supposed to be, we weren't really heavy. I think it is a trigger point for us. It's got some emotions, some not undealt with emotions that we've got to deal with. But I just want to say, why are weddings so expensive, man? Like, especially, oh my God. So at least with other cultures, you can kind of minimalize things and do things a little cheaply. But we have so many elements, especially, okay, I'm obviously a girl, so therefore I'm the bride. And with that comes so much, okay? Outfits, jewelry, makeup, hair, right?
Mehndi.
Nails.
Mehndi. Oh my God. The mehndi artist that we finally got for me is a godsend. I was having an absolute meltdown. Like, I have lost sleep. Okay, at least 3 nights straight, I thought, I'm not going to get mehndi on my wedding because I can't afford it.
And it's the one thing you were really, really excited for as well.
Yes, I've been mehndi crazy. Yeah, I've been mehndi crazy for my entire, like, I've always loved mehndi. I remember once, one of our aunts were getting married, and one of our uncles, it was awful, but I was so pleased with it. He'd made a tree on my hand out of mehndi, and it was the most ugly tree. It was hideous. However, I was so
we
happy
all had that. He made trees and flowers on all of our hands.
I didn't get a flower. I got a tree with no leaves. It was like a tree in winter.
And it's the ones that we got taught how to draw in school. Like,
it was, but less elaborate than what we've been taught.
Mine was a broccoli.
And it was. And he used to, I mean, he'd dip like the back end of a matchstick into the mehndi and then draw it onto our hands. But anyway.
Oh, he's not used the tube.
No, not the tube. Oh, no, not the tube. Like a matchstick. So since then, I've been absolutely mehndi crazy, like crazy. And that was the thing that I thought, oh my God, I can't afford it. Despite knowing people in the wedding market, like, oh my God, as soon as they know it's bridal, they're like, let's just charge them an arm and a leg. Let's charge everybody extortionate rates. And to the extent that I found it to be cheaper at one point to fly a mehndi artist from India to England, pay for their flights, their accommodation, pay for their service, and it was working out £500 cheaper than what a local mehndi artist was quoting me. And the irony is the person that I was going to get from India was someone who taught the local mehndi artist how to apply mehndi on people. That is how ridiculous it is. It was ridiculous. It was extortionate, and I'm really upset about the whole thing. But now, finally, touch wood, we've got a really amazing mehndi artist who's going to come, and she's fab. She's so good. I think she's better than all the other options that we've already seen. She's so good.
Same with makeup. It's makeup. Wedding makeup can be so wrong as well.
Yes.
Like it can cost an arm and a leg, but it can go so wrong because the amount of non-matching foundation shades that I have seen are horrific.
Even with makeup, I've managed to get this really good makeup artist after getting quotes from, because honest to God, I thought people local to us would be cheaper because we're not in the capital, right? As you can probably tell by our accents, right? Because I mean, I'm in Mumbai, so whatever. But like, you know, someone who was local would be cheaper, but I've ended up getting someone who I've done a movie with, and she was so good. I thought I'd never be able to afford her. Like, I called her up and I was like, you know, please, like, I'm getting married. She's like, oh my God, you're getting married. And she gave me like such like happy energy. And she's like, yeah, I'll do it for this much for you. And it was like a quarter of the price that other people were charging. So, I mean, it's crazy. And then you get the people that just are really lethargic, your vendors that are really lethargic and don't even get back to you for like weeks while you're panicking.
I think it's always really important to understand that a wedding for a bride is like the single most stressful thing she's dealing with right now. just call her back. It's not hard.
Yeah, just message back on whatever. And the worst thing is I'm not even there. So I'm like trusting you guys to talk to the people. I'm just telling you, oh, I like this photographer. Oh, I like this Mehndi artist. And I'm doing as much as I can from here, but like I can't. Oh my God.
We're doing
so
okay. I think we're doing okay with what has been handed to us. I think we're making progress.
Yes,
we've had a few things ticked off. It's just, I think, Shukti, because you've been to weddings in India recently versus the wedding that we're planning here in the United Kingdom for February next year, do you want to compare and contrast that a little bit? Because I think the onus is more on the bride and her family to physically get involved in the United Kingdom, is the impression I get.
I don't really know. They are quite similar. The ones that I've been to, because I've obviously been to weddings in the city, right? I've not been to weddings like in more rural areas. So the cultural part of it, however, I will say is that the weddings over here are a little bit crazier. I feel like we are more conservative, just a touch more conservative. And I'm not saying majorly, I'm saying just a bit, because we still have a good time. We're still not, separating, the elders from the youngsters and the men from the women. We're all together. We're all dancing. We're all having a good time, whatever. But over here, it's a little wilder in the cities, which is a little different to what I'm used to, because I'm used to weddings being like a traditional family affair, like a typical family affair, as opposed to, and like the dynamics between parents and their kids is a little different here.
Which is really weird. I think that's an entirely different episode as to how we're almost stuck in a bit of a time bubble from when our parents...
No, not necessarily, because I think this is only in this particular city and only with a particular part of this city.
It's a particular class.
Yes, as soon as you step out, even if you go to like Delhi, which is the capital, that's more traditional, I think. A little more conservative. Little bit, because I think and I don't know why. Maybe it's because the film industry is here, so everyone feels a bit more liberated or whatever. And like the boundaries have kind of blurred. Yeah, I feel like we're a bit more conservative in what we are okay with doing publicly and not okay with doing publicly.
Is it more like mates over there, is it like a bunch of mates getting together versus a family gathering?
Not necessarily. I think families are all there, but the difference between, so for example, if you remember Bend It Like Beckham.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So Bend It Like Beckham, I think, is a really good representation of British Indian families.
I love that film.
Even now, right?
Yeah.
It's still quite similar as it is. Now, if you remember, there was, in the wedding part, there was a couple snogging at the back somewhere. Yeah. Over here, that doesn't necessarily have to happen in the back.
Oh.
Right.
It can just happen where everybody's families are, you know what I mean? So it's a bit, I don't know, it gives me a bit of the ick, because, I mean...
So, I went to a wedding here in the United Kingdom where an Indian couple gave each other a peck on the lips, and there was an audible gasp. Because that's still not a done thing. And this is the bride and groom we're talking about. It's a peck on the lips. It's not
I'm not even talking about peck. I'm talking about proper snogging, like proper.
Yowza.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I don't think is appropriate across the board.
No.
In any type of wedding in the UK. I mean, I can't.
No, it's not.
I'm not talking about specifically the bride and groom, but even the bride and groom, or even like the sisters and it's really weird.
I've not even seen that at white weddings. Weird.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going to go with that, but interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So, how about other things in terms of wedding preparation or the actual, the run up to the wedding? What's that like in India? Because it seems like weddings can happen quicker there.
And is pre-wedding stuff all the same as well?
Yeah.
The pre-wedding stuff is, pretty much the same. I don't know if the organisation part of it is the same, because I've not been that close to anyone that's got married here. Like none of my immediate circles got married. One of my really good friends that has got married, she got married in America. So, but she was in Mumbai, but then she got married in America, and I couldn't go because I think it was the second wave here or something like that had happened of COVID. So, yeah, so I've not been that close, but you don't have to be as hands-on, for sure.
Yeah.
You can just, like, vendors will come out to you. For example, if I want to book an invitation card, like a physical one, I don't even necessarily have to go to the shop. They will come to me and show me what they have. You know, like we were talking about, oh, should we just make our own centerpieces? Because we could probably just do it. Over here, you don't even think to do that because the cost of everything is a lot less, right? A lot less. Food is much cheaper, decoration is much cheaper. Even if you go to an expensive decorator, it's much cheaper than your average decorator in the UK, like much cheaper. So, and you don't have to worry about anything. Like, for example, I gave you guys that picture of the mandap that I want, right?
Yeah.
I could literally just give that to some carpenter over here in Mumbai, and they'd make it for me for dirt cheap, right? Especially because I know film industry people, so they make sets all the time anyway, so they do it for dirt cheap, and it'd be fine. Whereas in the UK, it's proving to be quite difficult, right?
It's difficult, and it's the fact that you have to physically go out and meet people or engage in conversation. Because I mean, if I cite the example of my wedding, I was driving up bottles of soft drinks to the venue the night before, and I had to physically check that everything was in place because I couldn't trust the vendors. And it still went wrong. Even like because my oven gun caught on fire, which I've never seen happen at a wedding before or after. But my vendor was not the best, and my oven gun caught on fire, and we had to use a fire extinguisher and to get rid of that. So just for context, Hindu weddings have a fire in it, that it was just a bit of a disaster, if I'm perfectly honest. Which is one of many things that went wrong on the day, but it was only. It was a very, very hands-on experience. Like I had to call up people the day before to remind them to be there on time. And I needed coordinators and runners.
And like I'd gone to pick up your flowers. I remember I went and picked up your flowers, like I think the night before the wedding or something. You wouldn't have to do that here. You wouldn't have to. Everything would be brought to you, and you don't have to worry about, literally you don't have to worry about anything at all. So it's a lot more convenient, and I am very sorry that I'm insisting that the wedding happens at home, not in India, because that's just how it's always been in my imagination.
Home is home.
Home is home is home. And that's just how, even if Mumbai is more convenient, I have to be taken away from my home. That's how I've always envisioned it.
It makes sense.
That's the thing. Yeah.
So, going back to, I mentioned this earlier on, that like my whole idea of marriage was more towards what Shruti Didi was thinking in terms of like arranged marriage and all of that up until my late teens, but it was never something that I wanted. Like I know a lot of people around me, a lot of my friends, like all that kind of stuff, were always thinking about dating or thinking about getting married. Well, not getting married, but one day when they do get married, then how they want it and all that kind of stuff. And especially because around that time I was, social media became a very big thing when I was in my teens. So I was seeing a lot of it on there as well. And it was just never something. And I don't know if there's just something in my brain and I'm just wired differently, but I do think other people are thinking similarly. Now that I'm older, I've realised that other people think the same, and just haven't envisioned themselves getting married or thinking that they need a partner. And then in the same way, my idea of having children one day, my own children, has also not been something that I've really cared about. So it's just not something that I envisioned for myself. I know you guys, want to have your own kids, and by that way, I guess you want your own partners. I
think it was important to me to, because I always thought it was an inevitable truth that it was always going to happen. And my main motivation was to get married, to have kids, and to have my own family. However, I'm increasingly able to see the benefits of choosing an alternate kind of reality, you know, of like having not of being single, because they do say that the happiest people are married men and single women. And I can totally see why that is the case.
Yeah. I mean, I've been advised by a lot of older ladies that have been through the marriage route, or the ones that then didn't choose the marriage route, have then said, like, don't get married. And like, that's, you know, their opinion. Everyone's opinion's different. Everyone's ambitions in life and goals are different as well. But I just never envisioned that. For me, I'm quite happy in my own space, and I don't necessarily need company all the time. I don't need to be in touch with anyone all the time. I don't need to speak to someone all the time. I'm so comfortable in my own space and so comfortable just getting on with what it is that I'm doing. And when it comes to kids, and I don't know why this is, but like, I just see myself adopting, I guess, more. Like, I would want to do something for a kid that potentially would not have that opportunity otherwise to have family, and that kind of stuff. And I guess you guys know, and again, this is another episode that we'll do on ethical stuff that I think about whenever, but I would just, I'm more around the adoption kind of route. That is something that I would like to do.
I would say the disadvantages of marriage are possibly the fact that still a woman has to sacrifice a lot more than a man does. In conventional heterosexual marriages, we're talking. The woman's expected to give up a lot more and to perhaps take a little bit more of a backseat. It's not a universal truth, but it's predominantly the case. And it's almost like an expectation. And although women have now joined the workforce and we're striving to become more equal, I find that it's very resistant from a cultural perspective, from like it doesn't even have to be cultural, because it's the patriarchal mindset that we've all been conditioned towards, that a man's job is somehow more important. And again, this is probably another topic for another day. Gender inequalities in the workplace. That's something you encounter. So I think we've got a long way to go, but I can see why women are getting increasingly resentful of the fact that they are having to not basically prioritize themselves in a lot of ways, or prioritize their interests and their needs and wants.
But again, I think that is couple to couple, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why I said it's not a universal truth, but it's a pattern. And it's cross cultural as well. Yeah. Sorry?
Because I mean, right now where I am, and it might just be because we're not married yet, so maybe everything's hunky-dory, although we've known each other like a really long time. It might just all go crazy after the wedding. But we try and balance our responsibilities equally as much as we can. Like I've told you guys, if we're since we've got rid of the cook, because obviously, I mean, not obviously, but in India you generally have cooks who cook for you, right? But since we've got rid of the cook, we share the responsibility of making dinner. So if we're having paranthas for dinner, for instance, he makes the dough and then I'll make the parantha. Or, it's something as simple as that. I don't know, there's lots of things. I mean, I'm not going to get into it, but there's lots of things where we try and strike a balance as much as possible, which I think people should maybe strive to do as much as they can, so that they're not feeling resentful. But again, I don't know, right? This is how it is before the wedding. It might just all go, he might just lose all sense of, I don't know.
I think you'll be okay, because I think the biggest hurdle for me, or the biggest reality shock that I had, was actually moving in with my partner. And we had known each other for years, absolute years. I thought I knew him inside out. But being in the shared space with someone else, even if you know, love, you've got all that kind of respect for them and whatever, is a completely different ball game. And although, you're not living together yet, you've had that shared responsibility in a kind of house. I guess your next hurdle, I think the only thing that might change for you is having to share that space with somebody else and being respectful of that space and how clean you keep it and things like that. Because I am naturally a slob.
Yeah.
And or I can tolerate a very a lived in environment.
Yeah.
Whereas my husband's more about keeping things perfectly clean, and we still quarrel over that, if I'm perfectly honest. But that's something that was a shock for both of us.
So what we've decided after we get married is that we're going to get 24 hours help. So hopefully that won't affect us too much, and that's because it's affordable here, right? So hopefully that part of the drama of the relationship just by default gets taken away, and also because our schedules are going to clash and they're going to be hectic, and there'll be times where we don't even see each other for the longest times. So we're doing that, so that won't necessarily be a factor, I think, for us at least. Like I say, every couple has to kind of make their own rules as best they can. But I see, I get that there'll be some people who aren't relationship people. I think I am very much someone who is codependent, and I think that's part of middle child syndrome that I have, because there's always been one of you around. Right.
I think I wasn't prepared. If I'm perfectly honest, I think I was very much, okay, I have to get this ticked off my list because it's an inevitable truth. And then then when I actually was married, and like I said, this is probably a conversation for a different time, that was something I was completely unprepared for. I don't even think, because I was the first child ticked off, I think that I didn't have any kind of role models or any kind of prior, somebody else who's experienced something that I could take from. I was building my own brand new experience, and I didn't know what to do.
We didn't even have any older cousins of female cousins in the country.
No pep talk, nothing. Whereas I think
or someone who'd be able to pave the path for you, because you went through the route with our parents and they realised it was quite traumatic for you. They didn't try or maybe they would have tried to repeat it with us. But I was like, I think Ba or Mum, like one of them had come up to me and they were like, Shuku, don't you want to get married? And I was like, please. And like they just kind of walked away from me so fast, like I was about to explode.
Like, okay, don't anger.
And like and Shree's like, when they brought it up to you.
Oh my God, when they brought it up to me, I'm still so traumatized from it. I was just peacefully eating my dinner, and Bar just came over and he was like, well, you're so-and-so age now. I think it's time we started looking for you. I broke out into tears. I was like, how can you do this to me? It was the worst way for me to handle it. I was like, no, this can't be happening. I was like, please do not do this. It's not going to happen. No, thank you.
Oh no.
And that's kind
of been that. They also just kind of retreated away from me, like, okay, let's just leave it to calm down.
And I think I'd made it quite clear to Mum quite early on that I'm not going to have an arranged marriage and you're not going to make me. Like, I remember I think I said that, and I think Mum said it to you guys as well, independently, that no, can't do that with her. But that again might just be because they tried it with you then, and it kind of just didn't.
It was a bit of a disaster, if I'm perfectly honest. Yeah. But you know what is character building, and it made me realise what it was that was important to me and what wasn't. And I think it was an important journey to go through, and I got laughs out of it. I mean, honestly, I will never forget that service station experience.
You made some good friends out of it as well, didn't you?
I did make some good friends out of it. So
female friends.
Female friends.
Yeah, I hope they listen.
Yeah. We've nattered on for quite a long time.
Wrap it up.
This is a long natter.
We had a lot to offload for this one.
Yeah, we had a lot to say.
Feelings.
Yeah. We have a lot of feelings about this. I think, I feel like we're going to have to do a wedding one, like, regularly, in the lead up to the wedding, where it'll be my turn to be like, oh my God, I can't do this.
We'll have to have we might have to have like a wedding update segment at the beginning of how's it going? What have we had ticked off?
Right now, if I just say, like, right now, what do we have ticked off? We have all the vanity stuff ticked off.
Yes,
right?
basically.
So, hair, makeup, mehndi, done. I think I'm going to go tomorrow.
Venue.
Your lashes lady is also done.
My what lady? My lashes lady, yeah. Yeah. Venue is done.
And let's just say it's a dream venue, isn't it?
Nails as well.
Nails, so all the venue and all the vanity stuff is done. I think I'm going to go this week, maybe on Friday, to get one of my outfits at least.
Ooh, exciting stuff. And I think you have it. I think you've got someone to bake you a cake.
Yeah, we have a cake.
We have a cake lady.
Cake. Yes.
We need to go for a tasting session when you're here.
Yes.
So that'll be a fun thing to do.
And also a big one, you've almost decided or have decided your first dance song, which is a massive one.
Yes.
It can also be left
First
until
dance.
last minute panic mode. So
yes,
that's a really good one.
It's actually a backup. First dance song is what we've got. We're still waiting to see if we get the main one, which will be a surprise. If we get it, it's all down to what happens with his work stuff. Which again, I'm not going to say right now because I don't want to jinx it. Anyway, so but I think we would really appreciate hearing all of everybody else's, all the ladies that can, or lads, ladies and lads who can relate.
I'm sure there's another version of this.
Our inner turmoil when it comes to weddings and finding someone and the pressures that we face. So we'd like to hear from you lot as well. Leave it in the comments. Your traumatizing and happy experiences, both.
Hopefully more happy ones than traumatizing. I hope we're not the norm. I hope I'm not the norm anyway, because I don't think you two have been as traumatized as I was. But I have
in other ways.
You have in other ways, and we all have in other ways.
But I mean, in a similar topic, quite heavily traumatized.
Yes.
Are we all nattered out?
On that note, I think I'm nattered out, right?
I'm nattered out. I could do with another nap.
We're past 2 a.m. now, and I think I'm good to go.
And we're almost at 9:40 here. Peace out. Bye.
Bye.
Over and out.